It was a quiet Tuesday night at the local McDonald's, nestled in a small suburban town where not much ever happened. The streets were empty, and the air carried the faint hum of crickets chirping in the distance. Inside the restaurant, Sarah was working her usual evening shift. She had been employed there for 3 years now, juggling this job alongside another one just to keep food on the table for her 2 young children. Life wasn't easy for her. She often worked long hours, came home exhausted, and still managed to put a smile on her face for her kids. But she took pride in doing her best no matter how tough things got. The drive-through lane had been unusually slow that night. Most people preferred dining indoors or ordering delivery these days, so the trickle of cars passing through felt almost lazy. Sarah stood by the register, scanning the menu board as she waited for the next customer to pull up. Her mind wandered briefly to her son's school play tomorrow. He'd been practicing his lines all week, and whether she'd have enough energy to bake cookies for her daughter's class party later in the week. Just as she shook herself back to focus, headlights appeared around the corner, illuminating the dark road leading to the drive-thru. A sleek black SUV approached slowly, its polished exterior gleaming under the dim streetlights. It looked completely out of place among the faded sedans and dented minivans that usually frequented this particular McDonald's. Sarah leaned forward curiously, wondering who could possibly be driving such an expensive car to their humble little fast food joint. When the vehicle finally stopped at the speaker box, she pressed the intercom button and greeted the driver with her usual cheerful tone. "Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?" There was a brief pause before a calm, familiar voice responded. "Hi, yeah. I'll just take a cheeseburger, fries, and a coffee, please." Sarah froze for a second, her eyes widening as she glanced up at the security camera monitor above the register. Sure enough, sitting behind the wheel of the luxurious SUV was none other than Keanu Reeves, the Hollywood superstar known for movies like The Matrix and John Wick, but also beloved worldwide for his humility and kindness. He looked exactly as he did in interviews, unassuming, polite, and effortlessly charming. For a moment, Sarah forgot how to breathe. Her heart raced as she processed what was happening. Keanu Reeves, actual Keanu Reeves, was at her drive-thru window, placing an order like any ordinary person. This wasn't something you saw every day, especially not in their sleepy little town. She quickly snapped out of her shock and punched the items into the register, her fingers trembling slightly as she tried to maintain her composure. "Sure thing. Your total comes to $7.49, she said, her voice cracking just a little. As the SUV moved forward to the pickup window, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about how surreal this moment was. She'd always admired Keanu from afar, not just because he was famous, but because of the way he carried himself. Unlike many celebrities, he seemed genuinely kind and approachable, someone who didn't let fame go to his head. Stories about his generosity were legendary online, from him surprising fans with gifts to quietly supporting charitable causes without seeking recognition, and now here he was right in front of her, waiting patiently for his modest meal. When the SUV pulled up to the window, Sarah grabbed the brown paper bag containing his order and stepped outside to hand it over. Up close, Keanu looked even more down to earth than she'd imagined. His hair was slightly messy, and he wore a plain black hoodie that made him look like he could blend in anywhere. As he rolled down the tinted window, Sarah hesitated for a split second, unsure if she should say anything beyond the standard transaction script. But then, looking into his warm, friendly eyes, she decided to take a chance. "Mr. Reeves," she said shyly, clutching the bag tightly in her hands, "I just want to say, I'm a huge fan. You're amazing." Keanu chuckled softly, clearly caught off guard by the compliment. "Thank you so much," he replied with a genuine smile. "That means a lot." For a moment, they simply exchanged pleasantries, and Sarah felt a strange sense of connection with this man she'd never met before. Here was someone who had achieved unimaginable success, yet remained grounded and appreciative of others, a quality she deeply admired. As she handed him the bag, she noticed him reaching for his wallet to pay. Something stirred inside her, an impulse she couldn't quite explain. "You know what?" she blurted out suddenly, surprising even herself. This one's on me. Please consider it a thank you for being, well, you. Keanu raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. Are you sure? I don't want to get you in trouble. Sarah waved off his concern with a nervous laugh. No, it's fine. Really. It's just a small gesture. You inspire so many people, including me, so thank you. Keanu stared at her for a moment, his expression softening. Then, with a nod and another heartfelt, thank you, he accepted the bag and drove away, leaving Sarah standing there with a mix of excitement and apprehension bubbling inside her. Little did she know, this seemingly innocent act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a mix of emotions swirling in her chest. On one hand, she felt a lingering sense of pride for what she had done the night before. Giving Keanu Reeves a free meal had been spontaneous, but it came from a place of genuine admiration and gratitude. She couldn't help but smile when she thought about how warm and appreciative he had been during their brief interaction. It was a moment she would cherish forever, a tiny brush with fame that made her feel seen and valued, even if only for a few minutes. But as the day went on, reality began to creep back in. Sarah arrived at work for her morning shift, still replaying the events of the previous night in her mind. When she clocked in, her manager called her into the office almost immediately. Her stomach sank as she followed him inside, noticing the grim expression on his face. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the air. Sarah, her manager began, his tone unusually stern. We need to talk about last night. She froze, her heart pounding. Had someone already reported what happened? She hadn't thought much of it at the time. After all, it was just a small gesture, barely worth mentioning. But as her manager slid a printed copy of the surveillance footage across the desk, her worst fears were confirmed. The grainy black and white image clearly showed her handing over Keanu's order without charging him. Beneath the photo was a timestamp and a note highlighting the violation of company policy. I'm sorry, Sarah, her manager continued, his voice heavy with regret. Corporate got wind of this. They're cracking down hard on any deviations from protocol, no matter how minor they seem. I've been told we have no choice but to let you go. Sarah's world stopped spinning. For a moment, she couldn't speak. All she could do was stare at the piece of paper in front of her, her hands trembling slightly. You're firing me? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Over a cheeseburger? It's not just a cheeseburger, her manager replied, though his tone suggested he didn't fully agree with the decision either. It's the principle. You know the rules. We can't make exceptions, not even for celebrities. If word gets out that we're bending policies for anyone, it opens the door to bigger problems. Sarah wanted to argue, to explain that her intentions were pure, that she hadn't meant any harm, but deep down she knew it wouldn't matter. Corporate policies were ironclad and there was no room for negotiation. With a lump in her throat, she nodded silently, gathered her belongings, and walked out of the restaurant for the last time. The drive home was a blur. Tears streamed down her face as she replayed the conversation in her head over and over again. How could something so small lead to such devastating consequences? She had worked tirelessly at McDonald's for 3 years, always showing up early, staying late, and doing whatever was asked of her without complaint. And now, because of one impulsive act of kindness, everything she had built was gone in an instant. When she walked through the door of her modest apartment, her children ran up to greet her, their faces lighting up with excitement. Mommy, did you bring us anything from work today? Her 5-year-old daughter asked eagerly, tugging at her sleeve. Sarah forced a smile, swallowing the lump in her throat. Not today, sweetheart, she said softly, ruffling her daughter's hair. But I'll make something special for dinner, okay? Her son, who was 7, noticed the sadness in her eyes. Are you okay, Mom? He asked, tilting his head curiously. I'm fine, she lied, pulling both of them into a tight hug. Just tired. Later that evening, after the kids were tucked into bed, Sarah sat alone in the living room, staring blankly at the wall. The weight of her situation pressed down on her like a ton of bricks. Losing her job wasn't just inconvenient, it was catastrophic. Between rent, groceries, utilities, and school expenses. Every penny counted. Without the income from McDonald's, she wasn't sure how she'd manage to keep her family afloat. As the hours ticked by, Sarah scrolled aimlessly through social media, trying to distract herself from her racing thoughts. That's when she saw it. A post from one of her coworkers captioned, "This is ridiculous. Why fire someone for being kind?" Attached to the caption was a screenshot of the security footage showing Sarah handing Keanu his meal. Within minutes, the post had gone viral, sparking outrage across the internet. Comments flooded in from strangers around the world. Some praised Sarah for her generosity, calling her a hero for treating a celebrity like a regular person. Others criticized the corporation for its lack of compassion, arguing that rigid policies shouldn't override basic human decency. Memes and hashtags began circulating online, with phrases like "Justice for Sarah" and "Darn kindness matters" trending. Within hours, people started sharing stories of their own encounters with unreasonable workplace rules, turning Sarah's misfortune into a broader conversation about fairness and empathy. By the next morning, local news outlets had picked up the story, amplifying the outcry even further. Reporters reached out to Sarah for interviews, eager to hear her side of the tale. At first, she hesitated, unsure if she wanted to draw more attention to herself, but eventually, she agreed to speak publicly, hoping that her experience might shed light on the struggles faced by countless workers in similar situations. During the interview, Sarah spoke candidly about the pressures of balancing multiple jobs while raising her children. She explained that her decision to give Keanu a free meal wasn't about breaking rules. It was about expressing gratitude for someone who had inspired her during difficult times. "I never expected anything in return," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I just wanted to show a little kindness. Isn't that what we should all strive for?" Her words resonated deeply with viewers, many of whom saw themselves in her story. Donations poured in through crowdfunding platforms set up by supporters, along with messages of encouragement from people who admired her courage and resilience. Strangers offered to pay her bills, send gift cards, or even provide temporary housing, if needed. The overwhelming response left Sarah humbled and grateful, though she couldn't shake the nagging guilt of having caused such a fuss. Amidst the chaos, one question lingered in everyone's minds. What did Keanu think of all this? Had he heard about Sarah's plight? Was he aware of the impact his visit had inadvertently caused? As days passed without any word from the actor, speculation grew. Fans begged him to step forward and intervene, believing that his involvement might offer some resolution to the situation. After all, Keanu was known for his kindness. Surely he wouldn't let this injustice go unnoticed. Behind the scenes, however, Keanu was already watching closely. He had seen the headlines and read the articles detailing Sarah's ordeal. Far from remaining silent, he was quietly formulating a plan. For now, though, he chose to stay out of the spotlight, allowing the public discourse to unfold naturally. Little did anyone know, his silence was merely the calm before the storm. And when he finally acted, it would leave an indelible mark on Sarah's life, as well as the lives of countless others. As the days turned into a week, Sarah found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, the outpouring of support from strangers was overwhelming. Her crowdfunding page had raised more money than she ever imagined possible. Enough to cover her immediate expenses and give her some breathing room while she figured out her next steps. Messages of encouragement flooded her inbox, each one reminding her that she wasn't alone in this fight. People shared their own stories of kindness gone wrong, offering solidarity and advice on how to navigate the challenges ahead. But despite the kindness of strangers, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being at the center of something much bigger than herself. The media attention had intensified, with reporters camped outside her apartment building and camera crews following her every move. At first, she tried to handle it gracefully, giving interviews and thanking those who supported her. But as the scrutiny grew, so did her anxiety. She worried about her children, who were starting to feel the pressure too. Her son asked why people kept taking pictures of them at the park, and her daughter wondered aloud if Mommy was famous now. It broke Sarah's heart to see her kids caught up in the chaos. Meanwhile, the public debate raged on. Social media became a battleground, with hashtags like Justice for Sarah trending worldwide. Supporters rallied behind her, praising her act of kindness and condemning the corporation for its rigid policies. Memes featuring Keanu Reeves holding a cheeseburger with captions like "Even Neo can't escape corporate greed" went viral, blending humor with outrage. Others used the opportunity to critique systemic issues within the fast food industry, pointing out the struggles faced by low-wage workers who often had little room for error when enforcing strict rules. On the flip side, critics argued that Sarah should have followed protocol, no matter how small the infraction seemed. Some accused her of seeking attention or using Keanu's fame to gain sympathy. These comments stung, especially when they came from people who didn't know her personally. Sarah knew she hadn't done anything wrong. Her intentions were pure. But the negativity weighed heavily on her. She began avoiding social media altogether, unable to stomach the constant barrage of opinions about her life. Through it all, one question lingered in everyone's minds. Where was Keanu? Fans speculated endlessly about whether he knew what had happened and, if so, why he hadn't spoken up yet. Some defended his silence, suggesting that he might be giving Sarah space to process everything without overshadowing her story. Others grew frustrated, accusing him of ignoring the situation entirely. Online petitions urging him to step forward garnered thousands of signatures, with fans pleading for him to use his influence to make things right. Unbeknownst to the public, Keanu was very much aware of what was happening. He had been following the story closely since the moment it broke, reading every article and scrolling through countless social media posts. What struck him most was the sheer scale of the reaction, not just to Sarah's firing, but to the broader conversation about kindness and corporate policies. He admired Sarah's courage and felt deeply moved by the way she handled herself amidst the chaos. But he also understood the complexity of the situation. Jumping in recklessly could do more harm than good, potentially turning the spotlight even further onto someone who clearly wanted nothing more than to live her life quietly. So, Keanu decided to take a thoughtful approach. Instead of making a grand public statement, he reached out privately. Through mutual connections, he managed to get in touch with Sarah directly. His message was simple yet heartfelt. "Hi, Sarah. I hope you're doing okay. I've been thinking about you and your family, and I want to help in any way I can." When Sarah received the text, she nearly dropped her phone. For a moment, she thought it might be a prank or a scam. But as she read the words again, she realized they were real. Keanu Reeves, the same man whose meal she had given away for free, was reaching out to her personally. Overwhelmed with emotion, she replied hesitantly, thanking him for his concern and explaining that she was trying her best to stay strong for her kids. Keanu didn't stop there. A few days later, Sarah received another message inviting her and her family to Los Angeles for a weekend getaway. "Consider it my treat," he wrote. "I'd love to meet you properly and hear your story firsthand." Sarah was stunned. She had never traveled anywhere glamorous before, let alone been invited to spend time with a Hollywood legend. After consulting with her family and convincing herself that this wasn't some elaborate dream, she accepted the invitation. The trip itself felt surreal. When Sarah and her children arrived at the airport, they were greeted by a chauffeur holding a sign with their names on it. They boarded a private jet, a concept so foreign to Sarah that she half expected someone to tell her it was all a mistake. During the flight, her kids giggled uncontrollably, marveling at the plush seats and endless snacks. For the first time in weeks, Sarah allowed herself to relax, soaking in the luxury of simply being cared for. When they landed in Los Angeles, Keanu greeted them personally at the hangar. Dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt, he looked every bit the down-to-earth guy Sarah had met at the drive-thru. He hugged her warmly, introduced himself to her children, and assured them that the weekend would be fun and stress-free. True, to his word, he whisked them off to a series of unforgettable experiences. Visits to movie sets, tours of iconic landmarks, and meals at cozy restaurants where Keanu insisted on ordering burgers for everyone. It's only fitting, he joked. But beyond the glitz and glamour, Keanu made sure to carve out time for meaningful conversations. Over lunch one afternoon, he listened intently as Sarah opened up about her struggles, balancing work and motherhood, dealing with financial insecurity, and navigating the emotional toll of the past week. He nodded sympathetically, asking thoughtful questions and offering words of encouragement. By the end of the meal, Sarah felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Before they parted ways, Keanu promised her that this wouldn't be the end of their connection. "You inspired me, Sarah," he said sincerely. "Your kindness reminded me of why these moments matter. Let me return the favor." Though Sarah didn't fully understand what he meant at the time, she trusted him. Little did she know Keanu was already putting plans into motion, plans that would not only change her life but also shine a light on the countless others facing similar struggles. The ripple effects of her simple act of generosity were far from over, and Keanu intended to ensure that her story ended on a note of hope and empowerment. When Sarah returned home from Los Angeles, she felt like a completely different person. The whirlwind weekend with Keanu Reeves had been nothing short of magical. Her children couldn't stop talking about the adventures they'd experienced, the movie studio tours, the delicious meals, and most importantly, how kind and genuine Keanu had been throughout their time together. For Sarah, it wasn't just the excitement of meeting a celebrity that left an impression, it was the way Keanu had listened to her story, truly understood her struggles, and promised to help. But as much as she appreciated his words, she didn't expect anything drastic to come out of it. After all, life often didn't work like fairy tales. She was wrong. A few days after returning home, Sarah received a package in the mail. It was addressed in neat handwriting with no return label, but something about it felt familiar. When she opened the box, tears immediately sprang to her eyes. Inside was a handwritten letter from Keanu, along with several official documents and brochures. The letter read, "Dear Sarah, I hope this note finds her well, and I trust you and your family are settling back into your routine after our wonderful weekend together. Spending time with you and your kids reminded me of what truly matters: family, kindness, and resilience. You've shown incredible strength in the face of adversity, and I wanted to do my part to support you as you continue moving forward." Enclosed. In this package, you'll find details about a new job opportunity I've arranged for you at a local business owned by friends of mine. They're flexible, supportive, and eager to have someone with your work ethic join their team. Additionally, I've set up a scholarship fund in your name to help cover tuition costs for nursing school or any other educational path you choose to pursue. Education is a powerful tool, and I believe wholeheartedly in your ability to achieve great things. Please don't feel obligated to repay me in any way. This is simply my way of saying thank you for reminding me of the importance of human connection and for inspiring so many others through your actions. Keep shining, Sarah. The world needs more people like you. With gratitude, Keanu Sarah sat on her couch, clutching the letter to her chest as tears streamed down her face. She couldn't believe what she was reading. A new job, a scholarship fund. It sounded too good to be true. But as she flipped through the documents, everything checked out. The job offer was legitimate, a position at a boutique cafe known for its friendly atmosphere and employee-focused policies. The pay was better than what she'd earned at McDonald's, and the hours were flexible enough to accommodate her children's schedules. Even more astonishing was the scholarship fund. It was substantial, covering not only tuition, but also books, supplies, and even transportation expenses. For the first time in weeks, Sarah allowed herself to dream again. Ever since becoming a mother, she'd put her own ambitions on hold to focus on raising her kids. Nursing had always been a passion of hers, but the idea of going back to school while juggling two jobs seemed impossible. Now, thanks to Keanu, the dream suddenly felt within reach. But Keanu wasn't done yet. Inspired by Sarah's story, he decided to take things a step further. He knew that her situation wasn't unique. Countless fast food workers across the country faced similar challenges every day. Many worked long hours for low wages, struggling to make ends meet while dealing with rigid corporate policies that left little room for compassion. Determined to create lasting change, Keanu launched an initiative called Kindness Counts. The program aimed to provide financial assistance and resources to frontline service workers who found themselves in difficult situations due to unfair workplace practices. Partnering with nonprofit organizations and community leaders, Keanu set up a foundation to raise funds and awareness for these workers. He also collaborated with businesses to create job opportunities specifically tailored to individuals like Sarah, roles that offered fair pay, benefits, and flexibility. To kick off the initiative, Keanu hosted a press conference where he publicly thanked Sarah for inspiring him to take action. Standing beside her on stage, he praised her courage and generosity, emphasizing that her act of kindness had sparked a movement far greater than either of them could have anticipated. Cameras flashed as reporters fired questions at both of them, eager to learn more about the program and its goals. "I'm not here to villainize corporations," Keanu explained during the Q&A session. "But I do think we can all agree that policies should leave room for humanity. Sometimes bending the rules isn't about breaking them, it's about recognizing when an exception is the right thing to do. That's what Sarah did, and I'm proud to stand with her today." Sarah, visibly nervous but deeply moved, spoke briefly about her experience. "I never expected any of this," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "All I did was give away a free meal because it felt like the right thing to do. If anything, this whole journey has taught me that even the smallest acts of kindness can have a ripple effect. I'm grateful to Keanu for stepping in and using his platform to help others like me." The press conference made headlines worldwide, drawing attention not only to Sarah's story, but also to the broader issues facing service industry workers. Donations poured into the Kindness Counts Foundation, enabling it to expand rapidly. Within months, the program had helped hundreds of individuals secure stable employment, access education, and receive financial aid during tough times. Back home, Sarah threw herself into her new job and began preparing for nursing school. Her confidence grew with each passing day, fueled by the knowledge that she was finally working toward a brighter future, not just for herself, but for her children. Every morning, as she dropped her kids off at school and headed to work, she thought about how far she'd come. What started as a simple gesture at a drive-through window had transformed her life in ways she never imagined. And yet, Sarah knew that none of this would have been possible without Keanu's intervention. His kindness hadn't just changed her circumstances, it had restored her faith in humanity. In interviews and conversations, she often reflected on the lessons she'd learned throughout this journey, that sometimes taking a risk to show kindness can lead to extraordinary outcomes, and that even in the darkest moments there are people willing to step up and remind you that you're not alone. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah's story continued to inspire others. People shared their own experiences of kindness, sparking a global conversation about empathy and compassion in everyday interactions. Keanu's Kindness Counts initiative became a beacon of hope for countless individuals, proving that one person's generosity could ignite a chain reaction of positive change. Though Sarah remained humble about her role in it all, she couldn't deny the impact her decision had made. By choosing to give Keanu a free meal that quiet Tuesday night, she had unknowingly set off a series of events that touched lives around the world. And as she looked ahead to the future, she carried with her the belief that kindness, no matter how small, always mattered. The months following the launch of Kindness Counts were nothing short of transformative, not just for Sarah, but for countless others whose lives were touched by the initiative. What started as a simple act of generosity at a McDonald's drive-thru had grown into a movement that resonated deeply with people from all walks of life. Keanu's vision of creating a safety net for frontline workers struggling under rigid corporate policies quickly gained traction, thanks in large part to his unwavering commitment and Sarah's inspiring story. For Sarah, the changes in her life felt surreal yet grounding. She began her new job at the boutique cafe where she was welcomed with open arms by both the staff and customers. The atmosphere was warm and supportive, a stark contrast to the high-pressure environment she'd experienced at McDonald's. Her co-workers admired her resilience and often joked that she must be the most famous barista in town. While Sarah laughed it off, she couldn't help but feel proud of how far she'd come. For the first time in years, she didn't dread going to work. Instead, she looked forward to the sense of purpose it gave her. At the same time, Sarah enrolled in nursing school, using the scholarship fund Keanu had set up in her name. Balancing coursework, raising her children, and working part-time wasn't easy, but she approached every challenge with determination. Her kids noticed the shift in her energy too. They saw their mom studying late into the night, practicing CPR on practice dummies in the living room, and talking excitedly about her classes. It inspired them to dream bigger for themselves, knowing that hard work and perseverance could lead to amazing opportunities. Keanu stayed involved throughout this period, checking in regularly to see how Sarah and her family were doing. He sent encouraging notes before big exams, shared updates about the Kindness Counts Foundation, and even invited Sarah to speak at events promoting the initiative. At first, public speaking terrified her. She was used to being behind the scenes, quietly, doing her best without seeking attention, but with Keanu's encouragement, she found her voice. Standing on stage, sharing her story with audiences eager to hear it, made her realize the power of vulnerability and authenticity. People connected with her journey because it was real, raw, and relatable. Meanwhile, Kindness Counts continued to grow exponentially. The foundation partnered with local businesses, nonprofits, and community organizations to expand its reach. Grants were awarded to fast food workers, grocery clerks, janitors, and other essential employees who faced financial hardships due to unfair workplace practices. Some recipients used the funds to pay overdue bills or cover medical expenses, while others pursued education and training programs to improve their career prospects. Each success story added fuel to the movement, reinforcing the idea that kindness could spark meaningful change. One particularly moving example came from a single father named Marcus, who worked overnight shifts at a gas station convenience store. After being denied time off to care for his sick child, he lost his job and struggled to make ends meet. Through Kindness Counts, Marcus received emergency financial aid and secured a stable position at a nearby warehouse. In a heartfelt letter to the foundation, he wrote, "You didn't just help me. You gave my son a chance to grow up with a roof over his head and food on the table. Thank you for reminding us that we're not invisible." Stories like Marcus's flooded social media, further amplifying the message of compassion and solidarity. Celebrities, influencers, and everyday people joined forces to support the cause, hosting fundraisers, volunteering their time, and spreading awareness online. Hashtags like Kaki Spread Kindness and Helping Heroes trended globally, sparking conversations about systemic issues within low-wage industries. Lawmakers took notice too, introducing legislation aimed at improving working conditions and protecting employees from unjust firings. As the movement gained momentum, Keanu remained steadfast in his mission to highlight humanity in action. He traveled across the country, visiting communities impacted by Kindness Counts and meeting individuals whose lives had been transformed. Whether he was shaking hands with a grateful recipient, touring a newly opened resource center funded by the foundation, or sitting down with lawmakers to discuss policy changes, Keanu carried himself with humility and grace. His presence brought attention to the cause, but more importantly, it reminded everyone that no act of kindness was too small to matter. Back in Sarah's hometown, the ripple effects of the movement became impossible to ignore. Local businesses adopted more compassionate policies, ensuring that employees weren't penalized for showing empathy or making exceptions when warranted. Schools incorporated lessons on kindness and empathy into their curricula, teaching students the importance of looking out for one another. Even strangers began paying it forward in their own ways, from leaving generous tips for servers to helping neighbors in need. Sarah played an active role in fostering this culture of kindness. She organized community events, such as free workshops, for parents juggling work and education, and volunteered at a local food bank during her days off. Her efforts earned her recognition as a pillar of her community, a title she accepted humbly. "I'm not special," she often said. I'm just someone who got lucky enough to have a second chance. If I can use that chance to help others, then I'll do whatever I can." Despite all the progress, Sarah never forgot where she started. On quiet evenings, she would sit on her porch with a cup of coffee, reflecting on the twists and turns her life had taken. She thought about the night she handed Keanu his meal, the fear of losing everything, and the overwhelming support that followed. Most of all, she thought about how one small decision, to show kindness despite the risks, had set off a chain reaction that changed not only her life but countless others. Keanu, too, reflected on the journey. In interviews, he often credited Sarah for inspiring him to take action. "This isn't about me," he would say. "It's about recognizing the goodness in people and giving them the tools they need to thrive." Sarah reminded me that kindness is contagious. It spreads faster than negativity ever could. And if we can create spaces where kindness is celebrated and rewarded, imagine what we can achieve together. By the end of the year, kindness counts had become a household name, synonymous with hope and resilience. The foundation had helped thousands of individuals regain stability, pursue their dreams, and rediscover their worth. More importantly, it had sparked a cultural shift, a renewed focus on empathy, understanding, and the belief that everyone deserves a fair shot at happiness. Yet for all the accolades and achievements, Sarah and Keanu agreed on one thing: the true measure of success wasn't in the numbers or headlines. It was in the smiles of families reunited after months of hardship, the confidence of workers finally treated with dignity, and the knowledge that kindness could still move mountains, even in a world that often felt divided. As Sarah tucked her children into bed one evening, she kissed their foreheads and whispered, "Never underestimate the power of doing something nice for someone else. You never know where it might lead." Little did she know, those words would echo far beyond her home, carrying the legacy of kindness forward for generations to come. As the years passed, the impact of Sarah's small act of kindness continued to grow in ways that no one could have predicted. What began as a fleeting moment at a McDonald's drive-thru had blossomed into a global movement, inspiring millions to rethink how they treated others and approach life with more empathy. The ripple effects of kindness counts were felt not only in individual lives but also in communities, workplaces, and even policy changes across industries. Sarah herself became a symbol of resilience and hope. Her journey from struggling single mother to aspiring nurse was featured in countless interviews, articles, and documentaries. She graduated at the top of her class, earning her nursing degree with honors, and quickly secured a position at a local hospital. Every day she brought the same compassion and determination to her patients that she once brought to her coworkers and customers. Her story served as a reminder that second chances, when nurtured with hard work and support, could lead to extraordinary outcomes. But Sarah didn't stop there. She used her platform to advocate for systemic change within low-wage industries, speaking out about the need for fair wages, flexible schedules, and policies that valued human connection over rigid rules. Her advocacy caught the attention of lawmakers who invited her to testify before legislative committees and contribute to discussions about workers' rights. Though public speaking still made her nervous, she reminded herself why she was doing it: to ensure that no one else would face the same hardships she once did. Keanu remained a steadfast ally throughout this process. He continued to champion the Kindness Counts Foundation, ensuring it reached as many people as possible. His involvement went beyond funding. He personally visited schools, shelters, and community centers, sharing stories of kindness and encouraging others to pay it forward. He often credited Sarah for teaching him the true meaning of humility and gratitude. "She reminded me that heroes don't wear capes," he said during one speech. "They're the everyday people who choose to care, even when it's hard." The bond between Sarah and Keanu grew stronger over time. They stayed in touch regularly, exchanging updates on their respective journeys and brainstorming new ways to expand the initiative. During one particularly memorable visit, Keanu surprised Sarah by inviting her to attend a red carpet premiere of his latest movie. As cameras flashed and fans cheered, Sarah walked alongside him, feeling like a part of something much bigger than herself. It was surreal, yet deeply meaningful, a testament to how far she'd come since that quiet Tuesday night at the drive-thru. Back home, Sarah's children thrived under her guidance. Her son developed a passion for storytelling, writing essays, and poems inspired by their family's experiences. Her daughter, now a teenager, volunteered at the same food bank where Sarah had once lent a hand, carrying on the tradition of giving back. Both kids marveled at how their mom's simple gesture had sparked such a profound transformation, not just in their own lives but in the world around them. Meanwhile, the Kindness Counts Foundation evolved into a cornerstone of social change. Its programs expanded to include mentorship opportunities, mental health resources, and scholarships for underserved youth. Local chapters sprang up in cities worldwide, creating networks of support for individuals facing adversity. Businesses adopted its principles, implementing kindness clauses in employee handbooks to encourage acts of compassion without fear of punishment. Even schools embraced the movement, incorporating lessons on empathy and service into their curricula. One of the most remarkable developments came when several major corporations announced sweeping reforms to address workplace inequities. Inspired by the conversations sparked by Kindness Counts, these companies introduced policies that prioritized employee well-being, such as paid family leave, mental health days, and pathways for career advancement. While critics argued that more needed to be done, the progress was undeniable, and it all traced back to Sarah's decision to give away a free meal. Despite the accolades and recognition, Sarah never lost sight of what truly mattered. She knew that behind every statistic or success story were real people, individuals with dreams, fears, and hopes just like hers. That's why she made it a point to stay grounded, continuing to volunteer in her community and mentor others navigating similar challenges. "This isn't about fame or glory," she often said. "It's about reminding ourselves that we're all connected, and that our actions, even the smallest ones, can make a difference." Her words resonated with people everywhere. Social media campaigns encouraged users to share their own acts of kindness, tagging them with "spread kindness." Stories poured in from around the globe: a stranger paying for someone's groceries, a teacher going above and beyond for a struggling student, a neighbor helping an elderly person shovel snow. Each tale added fuel to the movement, proving that kindness was universal and boundless. Years later, when Sarah stood on stage at the annual Kindness Counts Gala, she looked out at the sea of faces and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. There were recipients of the foundation's grants, volunteers who had dedicated countless hours to the cause, and supporters who believed in its mission. Among them was Keanu, seated near the front, clapping enthusiastically as she prepared to speak. "Tonight," Sarah began, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "I want to thank each and every one of you for being part of this incredible journey. When I handed Keanu that bag of food years ago, I had no idea it would lead to this moment. All I knew was that it felt right, to show kindness even when it scared me, and look where it's taken us." She paused, scanning the crowd. Kindness isn't just an act, it's a mindset. It's choosing to see the good in others, even when the world tries to convince us otherwise. It's believing that everyone deserves a chance to shine, regardless of their circumstances. And it's understanding that we're stronger together than we are apart. The room erupted in applause, but Sarah wasn't finished. "So tonight I challenge all of you to keep spreading kindness to your families, your coworkers, your neighbors, and even strangers, because you never know whose life you might change. Maybe it'll be someone standing at a drive-thru window, wondering if anyone notices them. Or maybe it'll be someone sitting in a hospital bed, desperate for a kind word. Whoever it is, trust me, they'll remember it forever." As the gala concluded, attendees left with renewed purpose, ready to carry the torch of kindness into their own corners of the world. For Sarah, the evening marked another milestone in a journey that showed no signs of slowing down. She returned home that night, exhausted but fulfilled, knowing that the legacy of kindness would endure long after she was gone. In the years that followed, Sarah's story became legend, a testament to the power of humanity in action. Textbooks included her tale as an example of how ordinary people could spark extraordinary change. Museums featured exhibits celebrating the Kindness Counts movement, showcasing artifacts like the original surveillance footage and Keanu's handwritten letter to Sarah. Schools named scholarships and awards after her, ensuring that future generations would learn about the woman who dared to defy the odds. And yet, through it all, Sarah remained humble. She continued to live a quiet life, cherishing moments with her children and finding joy in the little things. On quiet evenings, she would sit on her porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, and reflect on how far she'd come. She thought about the night she met Keanu, the chaos that followed, and the beautiful legacy that emerged from it all. Most of all, she thought about the lesson she hoped others would take to heart, that kindness, no matter how small, always mattered, because somewhere, in some corner of the world, another person might be standing at a drive-through window, wondering if their actions could ever make a difference. And thanks to Sarah and Keanu, they would know the answer was yes.